Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. I hope you are well. Today I shall be discussing the game CyberPunk 2077. CyberPunk is a first-person role-playing game set in a futuristic cyberpunk world. It was developed by CD Projekt Red, published by CD Projekt, and was initially released in December 2020. Before we get going, dear viewer, if you like what I do down here in the ancient hold, then perhaps subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, leave a like and maybe write a comment with your thoughts on the game. So, it has been 4 years since the release of this game. There was a whole story about the launch of Cyberpunk, with things said by the developers about certain features and the game not being in a particularly good state. There were all sorts of issues which I won't go into, but let's just say it wasn't in the best way when it first came out. There was uproar and many reams of text were written in response. In our discussion here today about Cyberpunk 2077, I will not be talking about any of that, of all the updates to the game, system changes, tweaks, etc. Instead, I'll be talking about how the game is now in 2024. I can do this rather easily because this is the first time I've played the game in the 4 years since its launch. The only experience I have with this game was how it is now, currently, post all of the updates and fixes that have been implemented since 2020. So I won't go on about the trials and tribulations of CD Projekt Red letting down the fans and trying to win them back by supporting the game post-launch. I will simply give you my thoughts as I've entered into playing it with no prior knowledge about how systems used to be, how certain things worked, or how bad the vehicle driving is. Okay, well, I will probably mention the driving. If you're looking to see if Cyberpunk 2077 is worth purchasing and or playing today in the year 2024 onwards, then this is the video to watch. Cyberpunk 2077 is based on the pen and paper role-playing game series Cyberpunk, written by Mike Pondsmith and published by R. Talsorian Games. Its first edition was in 1988, with the latest being released in 2020 alongside the arrival of this here video game. It gives the players the opportunity to take on the role of various denizens of the fictional Night City, from netrunners to techies and rocker boys and all sorts. It involves the dice rolling and the ability checks and all that you might expect from a pen and paper role-playing game. The video game takes on many aspects of the tabletop role-playing game, from the setting to classes, art style and overall feel. When it comes to video game graphics, I'm not one to be worried too much about the quality. As long as they are in a certain fidelity and a decent frame rate, then I'm not too concerned. Saying that, the quality of graphics in Cyberpunk 2077 are nevertheless most impressive. The landscape, the architecture, it all looks great and quite thoroughly cyberpunk. The right scenery and surroundings are vital in creating the backdrop to a brilliant role-playing experience, and most definitely when they are trying to convey a certain artistic style, like those found in Blade Runner or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. There are lots of bright colours used in the palette. Striking yellows and pinks and blues adorn the buildings and signs and all sorts all throughout the city. This immersive feel can wash over you as you move about the place. The moving parts of Night City, the people, the vehicles and such, are all equally flashy and striking. There are neon punks, corporate types, gang members looking all fierce, strange prophets of doom, police and all sorts, all woven into the fabric of Night City. As you explore, you witness people walking about the place, seemingly on their way to some destination. This is as you might expect from an open world game such as this, but there seems to be more than just that. You can witness people arguing with others, hanging out together, talking, being arrested by police, spraying graffiti, purchasing food and other things, just to name some of the activities NPCs might be getting up to as you play. Night City is a living, breathing place and not one that feels bereft of any soul. The vehicular content is just as vibrant and very electric. As you might expect, there are some very futuristic style cars with sliding doors and smooth lines and all that, alongside more traditional looking vehicles, but still jazzed up on the inside with lots of dashboard controls and lights. There are motorcycles too, flashy indeed, with several to purchase or steal. I don't know if it's the same thing, but I unlocked a bike that felt like it was from Akira, which was pretty cool. Bikes also seem to have a better grip on the road, allowing you to whiz along at great speed and not splatter off if you hit something. The city itself is very much a character in a game such as this, with its denizens and moving parts having a great impact on the immersion you feel when you play. If this is off, feels bland, or rather than feeling realistic, it feels like a shallow simulation, then the whole experience can feel soulless. Luckily here I don't think this is the case at all. The graphical style of Night City, with all of its residents and goings on, takes hold of you and pulls you into the experience. CyberPunk 2077 is an extensively immersive game. Very good indeed, sir, a dwarven thumbs up. The sound of Cyberpunk 2077, as I've experienced in my playthrough, is of good quality. Deep and descriptive a conclusion, I know. There is music playing most of the time which you can switch on and off as you wish. There is a good assortment of stuff from rock and metal type things to synth and other cyber-like music. This adds another layer onto the sponge cake of cool that is Night City. There is a lot of voice dialogue in Cyberpunk. Every character you are able to communicate with is fully voiced and voiced well. You obviously have the famous film star and musician Keanu Reeves voicing the iconic Johnny Silverhand, in which he does a great job. But the rest of the cast is also stellar, giving some great and importantly believable performances which can really make or break the player reception to any given character. The protagonist V, you, is fully voice acted too. You are no mere silent nameless hero. Night City has several factions, like street gangs, law enforcement and corporations, which you'll engage with throughout your playthrough. They all have their own unique character, with one gang, Maelstrom, all having face implants and being nutcases, while another, the Voodoo Boys, are more focused on net running and tech activities. There are several others too, each with their own turf and preferred activities. Besides the gangs, law enforcement is very visual in Night City. If you perform any kind of crime within earshot of a police officer, then they will likely draw upon you and attempt to take you down. There are several levels of police action like you might find in Grand Theft Auto. If you can hide yourself long enough or outrun officers searching for you, then you can shake them off and they will go back to patrolling. It is a bit funny sometimes when someone is looking for you, the cop meter goes back to normal and you can then simply walk past the officer and they won't do anything. You begin the game by creating your character. There is a lot of options available, allowing you to come up with quite a bespoke character that suits your taste. You'll then drop straight into Night City and take on a job to steal a car. It is here that you meet for the first time your best friend Jackie, who tries to jack you. Things happen, and before you know it, you're the best of friends, going on many a crime capered together. This leads to an important part of the story and campaign, which I'll avoid talking about too much, as I don't want to spoil it for anyone. Nevertheless, the main story of the base game of Cyberpunk 2077 is a great beefy experience with twists and turns as you might expect from a game like CD Projekt Red. Most of the characters are believable and interesting, each with their own desires and objectives they are trying to meet. It definitely does the job. For the majority of the game you'll be left to your own devices in Night City and some of the surrounding areas. Night City is a large place and there is a lot to see and experience, dear viewers. If you've played any open world games before, like The Witcher 3 by the same developer, then you'll likely recognise the format here. The map of the city is dotted with icons representing different jobs and quests that you can embark upon. For you, being V, are a merc, someone who takes on some oftentimes less than legal work, employed by a middleman or fixer. The fixer relays the job information to you, which is detailed on your journal. I didn't experience any restrictions on part of the cities I could go to. It was all open to me from day one, or at least it felt that way. You have a smartphone which people can use to both call and text you. It is through this that the fixers and anyone else that might want to get your attention will contact you through. This is a simple system allowing V to engage with anyone you might know with a push of a button. You can ring anyone you know whenever you like. Generally, they will contact you though when they have a job. Besides the main story, there are other quest lines you can embark on that will involve certain characters in game, like Judy the Braindance Engineer, Panam, a member of the old Ocados clan, or River the Police Detective. These and others all have their own stories you can progress through, with lengthy quest lines that you would hope and expect in a game like this. They are each unique with all sorts of events and going on which V can become entangled with. And they aren't all simply excuses to go on a killing spree either. There's a lot of storytelling going on here. And there is a lot of role-playing and decision-making to be had here. Decisions you make, from siding with someone, deciding not to kill a certain person, or choosing not to take a bribe, will lead to very different outcomes. You really are role-playing in this game, with proper consequences for your actions and decisions. This is brilliant, dear viewer. This is what we want to see in our RPGs. It allows the player to play in a way in which they wish to, rather than being placated with cheap decisions that don't have any impact on the narrative going forward. Of course, this also allows for a lot of replay value, as you can roleplay as a different character with different decisions in any other playthrough. So, there is a chunky main quest line with a lot going on, side quests focusing on other characters and stories, and that isn't all. There are odd jobs littered throughout the map that consist of small little missions, like planting a bug, hacking a computer, stealing something valuable, or taking out someone who has gotten onto the wrong person's naughty list. These jobs will be for one of the several fixers located in Night City. There are some quite unique little side things which aren't through a fixer, that are a bit more oddball as well, like discussing existence with a vending machine or getting a man with a faulty crotch tech to the hospital. Besides this, there's even more things to do, all pointed to on the map. You can take out bad guys for the Night City Police Department, locate and take down cyber psychos, search for tarot card graffiti, and put a stop to criminals accosting citizens. If you don't feel like doing any of that stuff, then you can put it all aside and simply drive around the city, climb stuff, and do whatever you want. So there's lots of stuff to do, but how does it actually play, you say? Well, as you probably know, the game is in first person rather than third person. This on one hand is great for immersion and gunplay, but is also a bit of a bugger for fashion. I mention this because, as we've discussed, the world of Cyberpunk in general is one of flashy visuals with bold colours and style. It is to dress your character as you like, which you can still do of course, but you won't be seeing any of your wonderful fashion choices as you are nearly always in the first person. In the first person, you can run, jump, climb, slide and traverse obstacles. There is a lot of movement in, well, player movement. It's all good fun and it feels good moving around the world. The game features stats and attributes as you might expect from a deep RPG such as Cyberpunk 2077. These are intelligence, reflexes, cool, body, and technical ability. Each of these attributes affects certain stats, like crit chance and damage, while also counting towards certain skill checks, like having a high amount of body will allow you to simply wrench open some doors found in the game. They are all useful, and you'll have to focus your points a bit if you want to play a certain way. As well as affecting skill checks and passively increasing damage or health or what have you, each attribute has an associated talent tree. As you might expect, this consists of several tiers of skills and abilities that you can assign perk points to. Attribute points have a direct impact on what level of talents you can assign points to. If you want to get to the top talents on any of the associated trees, then you'll need to have the attribute at a certain value. Luckily, this is stated next to each of the trees. Each of the talent trees will have perks and passives that have substantial impact on how you are building your character. There are melee combat moves, special aiming perks, adrenaline health bars, air dashes and all sorts. This means there is a lot of diversity in how you wish to play your character. You could be a melee weapon wielding nutcase, running at people with a katana and hacking baddies to bits, or you could run and gun with shotguns, or stand back and shoot from afar with sniper rifle and precision rifles. You can even go all in with quick hacking, which I'll go into shortly. Besides the main attributes are passive bonuses and stat increases you can gain from simply playing the game. Each come under certain labels such as Netrunner or Solo. You don't spend points here, but rather the skill will passively go up when you perform an action in a certain way. For example, if you use a lot of quick hacks, the Netrunner skill will increase, providing you with a new bonus every 5 levels. This is a bit like Elder Scrolls of old, where your skills increased as you use them, making it feel quite fluid and natural. You can refund perk or talent points whenever you want, but your attributes can only be reset once per playthrough. My main advice here would be to get at least 10 in intelligence. The reason to get intelligence to a certain level is because a lot of the hacking Netrunner stuff will require you to have enough intelligence just to be able to attempt it. So, hacking and all that entails. This is a big part of Cyberpunk. You are able to jack in to all sorts of access points littered all over Night City. You will need a certain intelligence level as discussed, and then you'll be taken to what I call the sequence screen. This is a mini game featuring a grid of numbers. Besides this is 3 different sequences of numbers. The top sequence gives the least reward and the bottom sequence gives the most. Your goal here is to enter the numbers in the grid matching the sequences provided. The catch here is that you can only select a number from a certain row or column at a time, which will alternate each time you select a number. You cannot endlessly press numbers though. You have a time limit of 30 seconds and you will only be able to create a sequence of a certain length. It is confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it isn't too bad. It is nice to get at least 2 sequences, but you can simply focus on the most rewarding one only and you'll be alright. Besides the perhaps more traditional hacking, there is the quick hacking feature in the game. You have access to a scanner in your eye which will scan all sorts of people and objects in Night City, and many of them you're able to quick hack. When you scan something like a security camera for example, a list will appear on screen. This states all the ways you can quickly hack it and affect what it does. You could turn the camera off, you could cause it to distract some enemies to allow you to pass, overload it and others. Depending on your points in intelligence stats and along with cyberdeck you have equipped, you will have access to more functions and how often you can use them. It all takes RAM and such, but I won't go into it in too much detail. It is best to play and discover it for yourself. Most inanimate objects like cars and stereos will have similar hacks you can perform, but when it comes to people, that is when a lot of the more interesting stuff can happen. With a person, depending on how invested you are in hacking, you can perform all sorts of things. For example, you could simply overload the systems they might have in their body, causing damage, or you could make their weapon glitch, burn out their synapses, or bait them towards you. Besides this, there are some really powerful hacks, like making the target attack other baddies, detonate a grenade in the hand, or even shoot themselves in the head. Quick hacking is, in a way, a proxy for magic in Cyberpunk. The quick hacks are like casting spells, with the more powerful of them being available to those who focus their build on it. So let's talk about combat. Combat in Cyberpunk 2077 has several interesting facets to it. In its simplest description, it is a first-person shooter, allowing you to mow down baddies with big guns. And in this year, 2024, the gunplay is really enjoyable. The to and fro of trading shots with bad guys is satisfying and impactful. There are plenty of weapons available too, from pistols, revolvers and shotguns, to SMGs, assault rifles, precision rifles and sniper rifles. Of course, this isn't to say that all the combat is with guns. There is a plethora of melee weapons you can use, from clubs to katanas, chainswords, axes and more which you can swing about the place. There are even throwing weapons too. Whichever style or weapon type you take a fancy to will be supported by perks in the talent tree. I, for instance, went all nuts with shotguns and pistols, having increased chance to splatter baddies or having a special slow-mo aiming skill. I began the game on normal mode, but as I grew more powerful, easily decimating baddies, I turned it up to hard, which didn't seem too bad either. If you are looking for a not particularly difficult challenge, more of a follow of the story, then you can easily happily play on normal and not have too much trouble taking down all the bad guys present. These are work as you would think, and are generally good fun on their own. But there also exists tech weapons. These are weapons that have been modified somehow with smart technology. Weapons can be modified in different ways, like having lock-on bullets, charged shots for massive damage and all sorts. I mostly stuck with traditional weaponry though. Obviously, alongside this you have the ability to quick hack people and devices. When you scan a gang member, for example, the combat will slow down to slow-mo for a few seconds, allowing you to select a quick hack you wish to perform. This definitely helps keep the combat interesting, but I tended not to use it as much as I progressed, rather having faith in my shotgun. This may be personal preference, but I felt at times that quick hacking people you're exchanging fire with can slow down proceedings. Perhaps if the quick hacks were instant rather than having an upload time, it might make things a bit more fluid. At the same time, it might make them a bit too overpowered. You, as V, have several systems and technologies that are available to you. Firstly is the ability to visit a Ripper doc. They can perform various surgeries on you which will augment your body in different ways. For example, you can enhance your legs to allow you to jump great heights or perform double jumps, while you could modify your arms to allow some fierce melee combat or incorporate deadly stabbing weapons or even an explosive rocket launcher thing. You can augment nearly every aspect of your body, with some giving aforementioned active abilities, while most will increase your stats in some way. This is essentially in place for gear with stats on, like in The Witcher. Nearly all actual clothing in Cyberpunk is for aesthetics only, with only 1 or 2 items giving any kind of stat increase. As I've mentioned clothes, we might as well have a chat about it. There exist clothes shops and drops and lootables all across Night City, which provide you with clothes to wear. You can go all in neon punk if you wish, be a slick rocker type, or whatever you want really. There's lots of ways to have your own unique look. But as I said, most of the time you are in first person, so you won't get to see it. You can change the look of your character at any time as well, changing hair or facial features whenever you go to one of your pads or at certain other places. There's a lot of freedom and flexibility available here, so you can really look and feel how you want. Besides all the combat and the hacking and such, just playing Cyberpunk, being in the world, is really enjoyable. There are lots of little things, when all stacked up upon each other, add to a great piece of immersion. People will just message you sometimes, for no other reason but to say hello or get your opinion on something. There are vending machines where you can buy food and other items, and actual arcade machines where you can play the games within. Random things will just suddenly happen, like someone running a red light, or gangs firing at each other that aggroes a cop or two, who then start shooting at them, and all of a sudden there's this great big rumble, which you didn't have a hand in creating. To speak of bugs, there are certainly some in Cyberpunk. Sometimes things won't load or spawn properly, or NPCs will get stuck and be unable to move, and other little things. I did have a couple of hard crashes, but not enough to be too notable. Overall, the game in 2024 runs pretty smoothly on my machine. So, after all that waffle, what do I think of Cyberpunk, and would I recommend it? Simply, I would say yes. The world and the immersion it brings is truly great in quality. The city seems so alive, like a great organism comprised of all different parts. The game feels like you're role-playing as a denizen of Night City. My role-playing urges are duly catered to in this game, allowing me to have the character I want to be. This isn't a game simply on rails, and that is great to see. The systems are fully featured and interesting, from the combat to hacking and everything else. I would say some things like hacking could be explained a little better, and the driving can be frustrating, but overall CD Projekt Red have created a great title here with clearly a lot of love put into it. The main game features have to be solid of course, and they are, but it is all the little things that can often be overlooked by developers that will make the difference in a game being great. As it stands here in 2024, as someone who has never played it up until now, I would heartily recommend to anyone who hasn't played it yet and has some interest in the game's theme and role-playing games in general. This version of Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best games I've played in recent memory, and one I'm glad I finally got around to taking a look at. If you're upset about the game's launch date and played it earlier on, then I can understand why you might not want to check it out now. But I would urge you to do so, especially as it's often on sale and a total steal. And there we are, dear viewers, another video from me here down in the ancient hold. I hope you're doing well, and I shall see you next time.